quarter of our Greek class. We are working through our exercises from chapter 13 of our textbook. That textbook being a primer of biblical Greek by N. Clayton Croy. And we are on number 7. We're working on number 7. And our friend Robert is about to choose a verb and parse it for us. Robert, you choose a verb and parse it for us?
Okay.
Now, don't do as I did in Hebrew so often and parse a noun.
That's okay. When I was learning conversational Hebrew, I'd always get my genders mixed up, so I'd always call myself her, or I got in trouble with some people because I called them she.
Yeah. Pick a verb for us.
Well, just because I looked it up, and in the sake of time, I'll do kusate.
Okay.
And that's first aorist, active, indicative, second person plural of akuo.
Akuo
Meaning to hear. I hear.
I hear. Very nice. Okay. Well done. Next.
Cyrus.
Philip.
C-Y-R-U-S.
That's what I would have said.
Rettman. R-E-T-T-M-A-N.
Okay, Cyrus. Let's pop over to lesson 14 if you don't mind.
Oh.
Is that okay?
He's already self-prepared for that one.
Okay.
No, is he on 8?
Number 2.
Number 2, because we're doing the evens on these. We're going to do odds from now on, but we're doing evens on these. Right, number 2.
The prophet saw the Lord on the throne and said, and spoke to him about the kingdom of God.
All right. Very good.
Is that reflective, and he spoke to himself concerning the kingdom of God, since he was considering what he saw?
The prophet saw the Lord from the throne, and he spoke to him concerning the kingdom of God. So who did the speaking? See, this becomes an exegetical question. Who spoke to whom?
God.
It's not grammatically clear in this sentence.
I agree.
Larger context would help us if there were one.
Yeah.
We don't really know.
But you can assume that God is talking to the prophet.
Well,
Isn't auton, isn't that himself? Can you have him?
Wait.
Auton of him or himself?
That would be odd. I mean, it could in some constructions work that way, but I don't think it is.
And he saw this theophany, and then he thought, oh my God, he's going to consider what he saw.
Yeah.
Well, how do we know that, though? But based on just what we have, it's the Lord. It could be Lord as in
based on just what we have, it could be either way.
Yeah.
Let's
So we have to read into. See, we're interpreting now this thing and saying, well, who normally speaks? Does a prophet tell God about the kingdom of God, or does God tell a prophet about the kingdom of God?
The cross could be with. Yeah, the cross could be with, and that way they're both speaking.
He's not speaking to God, though. He's speaking to the Lord.
It could be. They had a conversation, in other words. Maybe if you want to go for an NIV translation of it, they had a conversation about the kingdom of God. Is it like that? All right. All right. Why don't you parse Aden for us?
Okay. That would be from actually Lego. But then when it comes over into the second aorist form, it becomes apon.
Okay, now you're parsing Apen for us?
Yeah, which is
Or Aden.
Oh, you said Aden. Oh, pardon me.
Okay.
One letter makes a huge difference.
Oh, I know. I get caught by that thing.
All right. That one came from Horao.
Okay, very good.
Yeah. And then when it came into its second aorist form, it became Aden.
Okay, so we have an augment just like an imperfect, an ending just like an imperfect, but we have what? Stem change. So when you have stem change, that means you have a second aorist, right? So second aorist, active indicative.
Looks like it's in the, that would be the third person singular.
Excellent. Third person singular from
Horao, which is I-C.
Okay, that's excellent.
Question?
Yes.
So the second aorist is the only form that has a stem change? Is that what I understood you to say?
Well, that's right, because remember that the present and the imperfect are both built on the first principal part, right? So the present and the imperfect have the same stem. The reason they have the same stem is because they're both derivative tenses, right? When you get to the aorist principal part, you can have the stem change. So if it's a first aorist, you may not have stem change, but you're going to have saw endings, right? If you have on endings and it doesn't have stem change, then it's an imperfect. If you have on endings and there is stem change, then you have a second aorist. So that's actually how you determine a second aorist, stem change.
Now even the rest of them will come across. It's the aorist, the second aorist, the only one that has the stem change.
No,
Okay.
but all second aorists have stem change. Not all stem change is second aorist,
Okay.
but all second aorists have stem change by definition. Otherwise, they'd be an
And
imperfect.
the only good way to learn those is just learn as another vocabulary because they're so different.
Well, yeah. What you're learning is principal parts. And so you learn harao, opsamai, adon, right? And so you know that's the present, future, aorist, principal part of harao. Yeah. So the trick is being able to recognize something and see what vocabulary word it comes from. Because then you can tell if there's stem change, you can tell, of course, what it means. You can pick out the ending, those sorts of things.
So you want to learn, when you're learning your vocabulary, if it's a verb that changes its stem, you want to learn it all at the same time. You want to learn that
Well,
IC and...
You could. That is, it depends on how the course is structured. That learning principal parts is something that is really, at least in my experience, it is a job of its own. You can sit down with a principal parts chart. There's not a principal parts chart in this book, and that's disappointing to me. But you probably at some point will sit down with a principal parts chart and begin to memorize or at least familiarize yourself with principal parts of irregular verbs. The regular verbs, you can predict the principal parts, right? Now, luo is a regular verb, and that's why it's used as a paradigm verb, because it's very regular through all the forms, and you can predict what that's going to look like on through. But you couldn't predict harao, so you need to learn those things. So you may spend time in the future learning lots of principal parts of irregular verbs. Just like you learn vocabulary, you learn endings, you learn principal parts. Now the way this book is approaching it is you're learning certain principal parts as vocabulary words. So that's approaching it in a slightly different way. But you're really learning principal parts of that. Okay, excellent. Next.
Adam Myers,
Okay.
NYERS, last name.
Good. All right, why don't you do the next one then?
All right.
4, because it's easy.
You found the way of truth in the temple, and you became servants of righteousness. But I myself did not wish to hear.
All right, how do you parse aganu?
Egenu is second aorist active indicative from ginamai, to become.
Okay, almost. It has an active meaning,
Middle deponent.
but it's a middle deponent.
Okay.
So it's a second aorist middle deponent from ginamai. It's deponent in the present principal part, it's deponent in the aorist principal part. All right, excellent. Next.
John Hollingsworth. Go to the next.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. The eyes of the Lord will see both your deeds and your heart.
All right, excellent. How do you parse opsantai?
That's from orao, to see, and that's a future middle indicative third person plural.
Very
They
good.
will see.
Stacy. Burdick. B-U-R-D, I-C-K.
All right.
Number 8. We will not eat in the sinner's house, but we receive bread and wine in the place of the righteous.
All right, very good. How do you parse fog on
The future, middle indicative, first person plural from estio, I eat.
All right, well done. All right, excellent. All right, have you got any questions on the no. Have you turned that into Norm? Did you turn that into Norm for that? All right, let's press on ahead to chapter 15. We will go through the vocabulary and I will pronounce it and you can pronounce it after me. And many of these, as we'll see, are principal parts of other vocabulary that you've already learned. So as vocabulary, we're kind of learning principal parts here. All right, the first one is akeka.
Akeka.
Okay, it means I have heard. All right, gegana.
Gegana.
I have become. So you can see that we're introducing a new tense here, which is the perfect tense. Engidzo.
Engidzo.
I draw near. The perfect of that is engeka. All right. Egegermai.
Egegermai.
I have been raised. I am raised. Egnoka.
Egnoka.
I have come to know. Areka.
Areka.
I have said, spoken, directed letter. Elelutha.
Elelutha.
I have come or gone. Heteros.
Heteros.
Other, different. Heoraka.
Heoraka.
I have seen. Serves as the perfect of hurrah. Upo.
Upo.
Not yet. Hepoitha.
Hepoitha.
I depend on, I trust in. Halakis.
Halakis.
Often, many times. Tethneka.
Tethneka.
I have died. I am dead. The perfect of Mesko. All right. Now, before we get too far into this chapter, there are a couple of things I want to kind of go back, and I'm not sure all of the things that Dr. House covered with all of you, and I'm sure he covered these things, but it'd be good for us to be reminded of certain issues as we're studying through. As we go through our textbook, this is obviously a grammar book. What is grammar? Well, grammar is the description of a language. We have to remember that a language is a living thing. A language is a thing that's being used by people. And grammar is an attempt to describe how a language is being used. And so we're learning Koine Greek, which is Greek in a certain slot of time, obviously in the time of the New Testament, around that time. Grammar is not proscriptive. Grammar is descriptive. Why is that important? What does that mean? Who can tell me what that means? That grammar is not proscriptive, it's descriptive. Yes.
It's not telling you the right way necessarily or how to do it. It's telling you the way it is.
Right. It isn't that the grammar book imposes correctness upon the language. It is that the grammar book is describing how the language defines correctness. And how does the language define correctness? By its use. Now, there's some give and take in that, because if you go to any classroom, for example, in our country where students are being taught English, they're being taught a right way to use English. Just because a student is using English in a certain way, that doesn't automatically then make that okay. And so because of that, you come up with terms like standard English or colloquial English. Right? So in an English class, for example, in a high school, students are taught standard English. Now, a student may make the argument, well, I'm just speaking, English as it's spoken on the street, and so that's correct. Well, from that standpoint, it is correct. That's street English or whatever. But in the classroom, we're looking for standard English. So when you write your essay, you are to write your essay in standard English. So there is a sense in which, in practicality, a grammar, prescribes what's right and wrong for students. But from our perspective, looking at a historical language, we're trying to describe how the language was used, so the grammar isn't setting down, rules that the language flows out of. The grammar is describing the language by saying these are the rules that the language seems to go by. And so when the language varies from the rules that we're learning, it's not the fault of the language. The language gets to do that. And Greek does that from time to time. We are studying here in this textbook morphology and beginning grammar. Now, I don't know, maybe you know enough Greek to know, or maybe you already know what the term morphology means. Anybody have any idea what the term morphology means?
How words change in their usage.
That's close.
Like the principal parts and sort of things.
That's close. It's the form, yeah, the form. So we're learning the very forms that make up the words. We're learning o, ace, a, amen, eta, usi. Those are the forms of the present active indicative endings. And so we're just learning those endings. And then we're learning some grammar. We're learning that the accusative case functions, for example, as a direct object. So we're learning a little bit of the basic grammar. Now, have you had a discussion about the Greek tenses? The Greek verb tenses?
Yeah.
Little.
So you know that the present tense is the tense of duration. You know that the aorist tense is really, the word aorist means undefined. Punctiliar is another word that's used. It's just the simplest way to describe an action. Preachers like to make a big deal of the aorist tense in the text, but the fact is the simplest way to say something is just with the aorist tense. And the perfect tense sort of combines those two, so you have an action that is undefined, and then you have results that continue on after the action. Okay, so those are the three types of action that you have in Greek verbs. Now when you get into syntax, you'll learn the different uses of the perfect tense. The perfect tense can emphasize the action over the results. The perfect tense can emphasize the results over the action. The perfect tense can really emphasize the whole thing as a unit. And I bring that up because one of our vocabulary words does this, shows how that word emphasizes the result over the initial action. And again, that depends on the word, the meaning of the vocabulary word, and the context in which it is used.
It's interesting that the subjunctive tense that affects that.
Pardon me?
Also, the subjunctive
mood.
where you say I could have been, or
Right.
I should have been, or
Look at the vocabulary word. It's the fourth one down. Egegermai. I have been raised would be the simple way of expressing a perfect. I am raised. If you translate it that way, that shows the word emphasizing the result of the action. I stand raised. Very often in the New Testament, when an Old Testament verse is being quoted, the author uses a perfect tense of grapho, where you could translate it, it has been written, right? But the emphasis in that usage is on the results. And so you could translate that, it stands written. The idea is it has been written, and it stands written, and it's secure, and it isn't going to change, sort of thing. And so, but that's kind of more advanced things, just as long as you understand the issue of the three Greek tenses. We talked about principal parts.
It's interesting that, since you bring that up, is that if you look in the prophetic text, that you would find that very thing, that's not all written in the future, but that it has a past characteristic to it, in a sense, past or a perfect characteristic to it, as if the prophet was there witnessing what he's prophesying that what will be.
Yeah, and those are different uses of different tenses. You'll find a handful of uses of the present tense, maybe more than a handful, really. A bunch of uses of the aorist tense and all those sorts of things. So sometimes a prophet will use an aorist tense to speak of something that hasn't happened yet, as if it's past, to show how secure it is that this is actually going to happen, how sure it is that something's going to happen. So various uses. Again, that's context. So we have an aorist that's using, that's referring to something that hasn't even happened yet. It's just sort of a prophetic aorist. All right, so let's carry on in paragraph 98, the fourth and fifth principal parts. The fourth principal part of a Greek verb is the perfect active indicative with the first person singular ending of laluka. This principal part serves as the basis for perfect active forms in all moods and modes, and the pluperfect active, which occurs only in the indicative. We'll get into the pluperfect active later on. The fifth principal part is the perfect middle passive indicative with the first person singular ending laluma. This principal part serves as the basis for perfect middle and passive forms in all moods and modes, and perfect middle and passive, which only occur in the indicative. The significance of the perfect tense. The Greek perfect tense denotes an action completed in past time with an effect that continues into the present. So we've shown you that graphically on the board.
Was that it continues into the present at the time it was written,
Right.
not when it's read necessarily?
Exactly. In the context of its writing. That's a great question. So the tense has two foci, a completed past action, like the aorist, and a present effect, like the present tense, the derivative. So it kind of combines those two. To say in the Greek perfect tense, I have filled the cup, is equivalent to saying, I filled the cup and it is now full. Right? It's important to realize that the Greek perfect corresponds only in part to English perfect tense. Consider these examples. He has often gone into the temple. He has gone into the temple. You cannot speak with him. Both of these sentences use the English perfect form, he has, but only the second corresponds to the idea of the Greek perfect tense. The first denotes action in past time, in this case, repeated action, with no particular reference to a continuing effect. Okay, do you understand what he's saying? I think you can do the rest of that and sit that down. Now, the forms, paragraph 100, the forms of the perfect active indicative. You can see the ending. These endings are very similar to what other endings that you know.
The aorist perfect.
Sort of.
Or
There's secondary endings.
the honest.
They look like aorist endings, don't they?
Yeah. Sigma change to a kappa.
But you have a kappa tense indicators.
Instead of the signal.
You have your alpha verb. So it looks like sa, sas, se, samen, sade, san, a little bit. You see that third plural got wild on us right there? But that reminds us of usi, doesn't it? Amen, eta, usi. Right? So here we have ka, kas, ke, kamen, kate, kasi. Well, that's not that hard to remember, is it? Once you know the aorist tense, just substitute a kappa for the signal. And remember, the third plural is a little bit different. Again, it's like on, s, at, on, on.
It's like they use the regular form too. Okay. It's con. Is it or con? For the
Yeah.
Is that not common?
Fairly rare. Yeah, you probably see kasi more than we're going to talk about reduplication in the paragraph coming at 103 actually, so we'll save that. But look at the forms of the perfect middle passive indicative. Now, these forms are odd because they don't have a coupling vowel, right? My, psi, tai, metha, ste, ntai. That's odd, no coupling vowel. But what do those endings remind you of?
Future middle. Future middle.
Amai, e, etai, amatha, esta, antai. Now the second singular throws a little twist in there for you. There's always got to be a little twist, right? And you know, if Greek were too easy, everybody would want to be a pastor. We can't be a so we have a little twist. My, psi, tai, metha, ste, ntai. Those are the middle passive endings. Now notice in the perfect it's like the present. Present has the same endings for the middle and the passive, and the perfect has the same endings for the middle and the passive. All right? And you'll be able to figure out how to translate that. I have been paid. I have been paid. It means I got a check, got the money. Right? So that's passive. Or I paid myself. I have paid myself would be a middle dependent idea. All right, perfect infinitive. Perfect active infinitive is lelu kenai, to have loosed. The perfect middle passive infinitive is lelu sai, to have loosed for oneself, to have been loosed. Very rare forms. I wouldn't even worry too much about those. Don't really worry about that. Both forms have reduplication, but the kappa suffix only occurs in the active. All right, reduplication. Not to be confused with augment. Augment occurs where?
Stem.
All right. It comes right at the beginning of the stem, that's right. And if there is a preposition prefixed to the stem, it comes between the preposition and the stem. But I mean, in what tenses and moods does augment happen? Past tense, only in the indicative mood, right? Past tense being what? Imperfect and aorist. Okay. Now, reduplication happens in the perfect tense in all of its moods. Okay. So if it's perfect, there's going to be reduplication. Unfortunately, sometimes reduplication looks similar to an augment. It's the same as an augment. But we will be helped by the different endings. Okay. So reduplication works like this. If the stem begins in a consonant, you just repeat the consonant on the front of the word and put an epsilon between them. So for luo, reduplication would be lel, right? Leluka. Now, there's a little hitch. If the first consonant is an aspirated consonant, like nasco or something, then the reduplication takes the unaspirated form of the consonant. What's the unaspirated form of theta?
Tau.
Tau, exactly. because you don't want to go around saying theft, because that just sounds a little bit weird, right? So instead of having a theft reduplication, you're going to have a teth reduplication. Instead of having a fef reduplication, you have a pef reduplication. So if you have an aspirated consonant, then you're going to have the unaspirated consonant in the reduplication.
So it'd be like,
Okay, he's going to go through some rules here. Number one, verbs beginning with a vowel or diphthong are reduplicated by lengthening the vowel or diphthong. Well, that's the second thing. We talked about consonant. If it's a vowel that begins the stem, then you just lengthen the vowel. Now that works the same as augment. So if the stem begins in a vowel, augment and reduplication are going to look the same. So I'm going to be helped by my ending. I'm going to be looking for what? If I'm looking at kappa, that's right, kappa is my tense indicator. All right. The result is that reduplication is identical to augmenting. Examples, agapao, I love, agapeka. You haven't had contract verbs yet, though, have you? So, but anyway, you can see the beginning of that word. And so you can see the kappa, alpha. Now, how would you make that an aorist? How would you make agapao an aorist? If agapeka is the perfect, what would the aorist be? Sa, that's right. Etoimazo goes to etoimaka. See, we've just lengthened the initial vowel, and you have, instead of using a O ending in the present, you have used ka. Now, etoimaka, that's the perfect principal part of etoimazo, which is the present vocabulary form, right? The zeta's dropped out, in other words, right? Now the zeta and the kappa aren't going to go well together. All right, 2, verbs beginning with aspirated consonants, phi, theta, chi, are reduplicated with the corresponding unaspirated consonants. We talked about that. 3, verbs beginning with a double consonant, psi, zeta, xi, or with 2 consonants unless the second consonant is lambda or rho, are reduplicated with epsilon. So again, reduplication is identical to augment. Examples, zeteo, I see, ed, zeteka. And so on. Number 4.
Is there an example? Okay, hold on. There it is. I was just looking for an example of the lambda. Second consonant. Okay.
All right, and number 4, irregular verbs. A number of verbs form the perfect in a wholly unpredictable way, which is not surprising, I suppose. Erkamai is elelutha, which is just odd, but you can kind of see a little bit of reduplication, I think, in that. Kuo goes to akeka'a, so it's just kind of an odd sort of reduplication. But that, again, you learn with the principal part. But you see something like that, and it's not entirely all that difficult to recognize that as a perfect. You really get used to it. All right, any questions on the perfect then? So you have reduplication, and you have endings, ka, kas, ka, kamen, kate, kasi. And then middle passage, my, sai, tai, meta, ste, nta. Now, the pluperfect is used very rarely by comparison in the New Testament. And the pluperfect simply takes the perfect tense and puts all of it into the past. Now, you made a good point. The perfect is an action with results that continue on into the present from the standpoint of the writer. The pluperfect is describing an action with results that continued on in the past, but we're not making a statement as to whether or not they continue on in the present. They may or may not, but I'm not saying anything about that. Right? So let's say when I ran into Bob and he asked me if I wanted to have lunch, I had already eaten. I had eaten. Now what would be the perfect? I have eaten. So if I say I have eaten, that means a while ago I ate and I'm still full. Okay? So if I'm talking about something that happened yesterday, I ran into Bob and he wanted to have lunch, but I had already eaten. So at that point, I ate and I was already full. But that was then, not now. Right? So the pluperfect simply takes the perfect tense and puts it all in the past. So all you got to do is take that. You see how in English, I have eaten. Have is present, isn't it? And eaten is past. So I'm combining past and present, even in English. Right? But if I change the have to a past, I had, now I've got two pasts. I had eaten. I've taken the whole thing and put it in the past. Any questions on that? Or you can make it passive. I had been eaten.
Is there a pluperfect passive?
Well, maybe not in the New Testament.
Jonah,
What?
Jonah could say.
I had already eaten.
Had been eaten. I would not have you worry too much about learning the pluperfect ending. Because if you had, notice this about the pluperfect ending. The eta, the diphthong, is a coupling vowel, the eta there. So you have reduplication and you have a kappa, all right? And you look at the word and you say, all right, I have reduplication, I have a kappa, but I'm not having a ka, kas, ka, common, kata, kase, or a comma. So what do I have going on here? Well, the other option is a pluperfect. I wouldn't, clutter your mind with trying to remember those. And, once you've learned all these endings, it looks an awful lot like on, es, on, and on, doesn't it? So it's not really that tough to figure it out. And it's used so rarely that it's just not worth cluttering your mind, in my opinion. So I'm not going to quiz you on some common perfect tense forms for reference. Here's a list. Therapuo, tetherapeuka. That's not like you need to be here. Naluo, leluka, pistuo, pepistuka. So here he's giving you kind of a principal parts list. I wish that there was a principal part. I wish there were a principal part. That's the subjunctive tense in English, right? The proper way to say that is, I wish there were. Watch the news, they get it wrong all the time. Anyway, I wish there were a principal parts chart in this book because it would help us, be able to look. I'm going to find one, and I'm going to make photocopies of it and get it to you so that we can look at it and you can see what's going on. Is that the principal parts chart you have there?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
No Bible work?
Grand word.
Graph work.
Yeah. Yeah.
This one's Bible work.
Yeah.
So you-
Same thing. Yeah. It's
So you don't have these happy little things. Well,
But it's only the regular.
no.
Yeah.
This isn't a
No, that's-
principal parts chart. These are just, this is the form. And this is very valuable, obviously.
that's Hebrew.
A strong verb. Let's turn that over. We'll get you a principal parts chart. Let me tell you the situation I'm in life here. I've been at my church this month a year. And we have been for many months remodeling an office complex, but we're doing it within the church. And so church people are doing it. And I'm even helping a little bit. And so it's taken a long time. So all of my books, I think I have 45 boxes of books. Almost all of my books are still in boxes in a back room in the church. So I have for last year, I've had very few books. Which, by the way, having my Greek New Testament is what's kept me alive in terms of preaching for a year. You know what I mean? Being able to get into a Greek New Testament and exegete and do all that kind of stuff. If you can actually read your Greek New Testament, you don't have to have a whole lot of other books. However, it does hamper you to not have your books where you can get to it. So I don't know that I can even get to a principal parts chart really easily, really quick. So that's right. And also, a couple of months ago, we had a little fire in the attic of our house.
Oh.
And so we haven't lived at home for 2 months. We've been living all over the place. Even got to stay in a hotel last night. So we've kind of had a major remodel on our whole house. Not that we had to because of the fire, but since they took most of our furniture and our bed and all of our clothes, you'll probably see me wearing this for. Actually, I've worn this for to church for the last 2 months, but we only have a few clothes. Anyway, life is just really topsy-turvy and crazy. But I will do my best to get you that principal parts chart as soon as possible, and I think that will really help you see what's going on. So what's happening here is he's giving you part of a principal parts chart. He's giving you the present, the first principal part, and he's skipping the future, he's skipping the aorist, and he's going to the perfect principal part, right?
In some of the other chapters, he does that for a few.
Yeah. So you kind of understand the principle, I think, of principal parts, hopefully. Actually, in beginning Greek, that's one of the concepts that is hardest for beginning Greek students to get a hold of. And why do these things change? The regular verbs are much easier to understand. And we can see, a verb like luo changing to leluka is perfectly reasonable. Well, a verb like akuo changing to ake ka'a is kind of odd. I don't know why it does that. Balo changes to beble ka. Might be able to articulate some reasons for that doing that. But there are some that are just very, very odd. And let's see if we can see any in this list or not. Okay, there's one. Third one from the bottom. Lambano.
Yes.
Right? Goes to Alepha. Now, what's happening there? Not totally sure. Because it's somewhat similar, but it's not very similar, right? So just strange things are happening. But remember, grammar is descriptive, not prescriptive. Why they said it that way, I don't know. I mean, why they say y'all in the South? My sister moved to Houston, and then I learned that y'all is singular and all y'all is plural, right? They get to do what they want, right?
Not in Texas.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, not in Texas. It's just Houston. Oh, in Houston? Well, not in Dallas area, I guess.
Or something.
You live in Dallas?
Yeah, we just came up here from Dallas, and you came
Oh,
up
you
here
do?
from San Antonio.
So y'all can kind of be anything, huh?
Well, y'all was always plural.
Is it?
Y'all
I always thought it was
is
plural too, but
Y'all.
apparently
Yeah,
in
you all.
Houston, then they've gone to all y'all.
Anything
I say
All
y'all, but I
y'all.
mean, I mean it for the same
Do
thing.
you say all y'all?
All y'all.
Sometimes,
Yeah.
but usually if it's like a big group or something, I guess.
Yeah, well, all y'all is like if you're like angry with a large group, you make sure that you point out every single one.
We're not leaving anybody out.
Yeah, just
all y'all.
All y'all want to know better. But anyway, with Lego, look at Lego, Lego, Erica,
That's weird. What about the next one here?
Patho, Pepoitha.
But it's like in the active it's pepoitha.
Oh.
What's the deal with that?
They couldn't decide.
Well,
Capace
a lot of what happens with Greek is because of euphonics. Now, what does euphonics mean?
What sounds good?
What
Sounds good.
Yeah, it needs to sound good. That's why you're not going to go around saying, the vocabulary word is tithe me. In that me verb, you have reduplication even in the present, which is, we'll get into that. But you say tithe me, not thithe me, because if you say thithe me, maybe you sound like a thithy. I don't know. But euphonics is important, right? And so why these, probably some of the reasons why these words evolved in this way, and we're looking at evolution, can I say that word? We're looking at evolution, we're looking at language, because language evolves, right? It's just usage, it's just, I don't know, if it's teenagers, spray painting walls that are saying it different and it catches on or something, I don't know. But one thing I do know, for example, a word like Lego and Ereka, those appear to be, and indeed are, two completely different stems. Right? We have that in English. Go and went. That's exactly what I was thinking. Those are actually two separate words. And as in English, I say I am going if I'm using the present tense. But if I'm using the past tense, I pull a whole different word out of the air that means the same thing and say I went.
Or you can say
So I don't use whatever the present tense of went is, I don't even know.
Right? I know.
No, that's perfect. But I don't know what the present tense of went is. It's completely fallen out of usage in English. And I don't know what the past tense of go is. Goed? Right? Because that's completely fallen out of usage in English. And so those words have meshed together to become as if they are one word, right? So the past tense of go becomes went. Right? So the perfect tense of Lego becomes ereka. It's the same thing. Right? I don't know what the present form of ereka is. It's completely fallen out of usage. Right? I don't know what the perfect stem of Lego looks like. It's fallen out of usage. Because for some reason, in the present tense, they chose to use the word Lego to describe it. And they chose to use whatever word was, from the stem or created the stem, ereka, for the perfect. I mean, they get to do that. It's their language, like we got to go, went, But that's what's happened. You actually have two different words, part of the principal parts dropping out, sort of coming together and being created as if they're the same word, and then they really become the same word. Different principal parts of the same word, right? Well, that's the process you have here. So we did it too with some of our words. They did it with maybe more of theirs. All right. So any questions on lesson 15? How do you translate it? I have loosed, basically, right? Fairly straightforward. I have been loosed, or I have loosed myself. What does that mean? That's
You
what
were
we're
tied
talking
up and you untied yourself.
And if you see a pluperfect, then you just change the have to a had. I had been loosed, or I had loosed in the active, or I had loosed myself. Okay? Everybody understand reduplication? Okay, good. All right, so we're going to do the odd. We're going to do the odd ones of practice and review for 15 for next time, right? And we're going to do the odd ones of the New Testament. And we will do number 1 in our English degree.
I always take you.
What time are we supposed to take a break?
Right now.
Right now?
Whenever you want. Or usually when the tape ends.
When there's a
Can I borrow a pencil from someone so I can just write this into my book?
Sure, here.
Okay, thank you. All right. It sounds like break is an important part of our experience here.
Well, it matters usually on the length of the tape and however long the night's going to last.
It is only 7:30.
It seems like we've been here.
How long is the tape?
What are they, 2 hours each?
You have 42 minutes left now.
You can finish the whole evening.
All right. In lesson 16, just thinking about the homework assignment, we're gonna do the odd of the practice and review, the odd of the New Testament, and we're going to do number 1 of the English degree. Everybody got that? Same thing as for 15, odd for practice and review, odd for New Testament, number 1 for English degree. And next time, be ready for a quiz on the vocabulary of these 2 chapters and the endings. So the endings that we've covered from the previous chapter are kakaske, come katakasi, and my side time, that is that, and right? Those endings. And now we get to the sixth principle